Now, this is Mathias Cormann's final budget as Finance Minister after a huge innings, not quite the one he'd been hoping for 12 months ago. There was a surplus on the way.
Indeed, and certainly we're delighted to have him join us now live on the show from Perth. Minister, welcome. Can I just start with the situation in Victoria, Minister? We've heard today that it's increasingly unlikely that the Stage 4 restrictions will be lifted on the 19th of October. So this, of course, is going to make for one of the longest lockdowns in the world. Surely now we're well past the point where the cure is worse than the disease in Victoria.
Well, look, I'm not going to provide specific commentary on the decisions that are made locally in Victoria, but there's no question that in economic terms, the continued lockdown in Victoria is having a very negative impact on the economy nationally. I mean, self-evidently, it's having an extremely negative impact locally in Victoria, but it's having a material negative impact nationally.
Yeah, and Minister, exactly that, when you've put all this stimulus through in your budget, and what is crucial is business confidence. Today we've seen in our Sunday papers there's 78 members of Victoria's business community. We've got Flexi Group Chair Andrew Abercrombie describing Victoria as an Orwellian nightmare. Isn't this going to blow a hole in the business confidence that you were hoping for?
Well, you know, in the rest of Australia, the economy has been recovering. Businesses, have been recovering. Activity has been growing again, has been starting to grow again. Jobs have been recovered, and we obviously are now looking to see new jobs being created. I mean, it's obviously we hope that in Victoria they'll get conclusively on top of the situation as soon as possible. But in the end, it is what it is.
Just turning to the border issue now, Senator, and of course Western Australia's border is still closed. The High Court is going to hear, I think, starting on the 3rd of November, whether or not that is legal. I note the West Australian government has as the 1st of April next year the date that they will open the border. You must be hoping that the High Court strikes it down sooner than that.
Well, the 1st of April is our assumption for budget estimate purposes. I think the assumption in the state budget here in Western Australia was actually for state borders to open even later than that. But look, a forecasting assumption is just that. It's an assumption. It's not a target. Of course, we would like to see the borders open as soon as possible. And I've long been on the record. I can't see any rational reason for state borders from Western Australia to remain closed to jurisdictions like the Northern Territory and South Australia, in particular the ACT, when those jurisdictions have been in a better, stronger, COVID-safer position for longer than WA, makes no sense at all. I mean, 0 active cases in many of those jurisdictions, certainly 0 locally acquired community transmission for months on end. I can't see what the public health argument is in favour of these continued closures, state border closures from WA into those jurisdictions.
Yeah, going to the budget, obviously there are these really big initiatives around bringing tax forward and indeed for business in terms of incentives. Now, you've stayed away, though, from JobSeeker and any permanent change to New Start at this stage. I mean, is this really you're leaving it as a bargaining tool for a little bit later on in the year?
No, not at all. It's about making sure that we make, decisions that are as informed as possible. I mean, we knew when we provided, historically unprecedented crisis level support to people who lost their jobs by doubling the level of income support. We knew it was necessary in the short term, but we also knew it would cause distortions in the economy, which are undesirable over a longer period. And that is indeed what's happening. The feedback we're getting increasingly from businesses around Australia is that they're finding it difficult to attract workers into jobs that are available because the job seeker payments are too high. Clearly you want job seeker payment on an ongoing basis to be appropriate, to provide the appropriate level of income support, but without providing a disincentive to return to work and into jobs that are available across the economy. And what we've decided, obviously the job seeker payments continue to be $250 a fortnight higher than what they were before this crisis. But before we make decisions as a government in terms of the final arrangements, we want to just review some more data and information about the extent of the recovery, what is happening in the labour market, and indeed to make sure we have some more data about that helps inform decisions to minimise the distortions that are taking place as we speak.
Just turning to the tax cuts in the budget now, Senator. Of course, stage 2 was brought forward by 2 years. There was a lot of speculation that stage 3 might also be brought forward. Of course, that didn't happen. Why did the government decide not to bring forward that third stage, which presumably would also have been a stimulus for the economy?
Well, the third stage remains in place. It was legislated, last year, and it will ensure that once our income tax relief plan is fully in place, and fully implemented in practice, that 95% of working Australians will not pay more than 30% tax on any of their income, which is a major structural reform. But in the end, right now, we clearly needed to provide income tax relief and putting more money into workers' pockets as quickly as possible to help boost aggregate demand. And this was, in our judgment, the best way to target this additional and earlier income tax relief at low and middle income earners, where it was most likely that the money would be spent and find its way into domestic consumption, but also to facilitate the fastest possible passage through the Parliament. This is not a time where you want to get bogged down into lengthy battles in Parliament, that are completely and utterly unconstructive, particularly given the third stage tax cuts are already legislated, are already in place, and will be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, so Mathias Cormann, obviously the next budget is not that far away. It's in May. We've heard that criticism there's not enough structural reform in this budget. Are we going to look at a lot more initiatives coming through in the May budget, and perhaps something on childcare?
Well, we have pursued substantial structural reform on childcare a couple of budgets ago. And this financial year, the Australian government is committing more than $9 billion to towards childcare subsidies to ensure we can have appropriately affordable access to childcare arrangements. But under our government and under the settings that we put in place through structural reforms that we've put in place, these subsidies are appropriately targeted on a means-tested basis, and they also come with relevant work test strings attached to them.
Just on the means testing issue, sorry to interrupt. Just on the means testing issue, you've been very critical, the government at least has been very critical of Labor's policy here for essentially not means testing childcare. But wasn't that the original policy of the coalition a few years back, not to means test it effectively?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
All right, now, look, Minister, we've just got time for one more thing. I want to know the Mathias Cormann pitch for Secretary-General of the OECD and what it might mean for Australia if you got the job.
Well, look, the OECD is the economic policy peak body and the norm-setting body for free market democracies, and around the world, free market democracies right now dealing with the challenges that come with the global economic recovery post-COVID. And this is arguably the most important time in the OECD's history. I just believe that I can make a contribution to help drive the necessary economic policy proposals that will help maximize the strength of the recovery at a global level. And that clearly will be helpful and useful in an Australian context too. Australia is a globally focused, open trading economy. Our future economic success depends on the global economic success and the strength of the recovery moving forward. And so to the extent that I can have the opportunity to help facilitate that, working with OECD member countries, then I think that would be good for Australia too.
Mathias Cormann, we wish you all the very best for that role, and go Australia. Thank you.
Thank you so much.